To Gigi's Burger Bar here in downtown Coffeyville. I'm Shane Neal. It's our Red Raven Coaches Show here from Gigi's. Big thanks to them for having us. And, of course, big thanks to the David W. Barnes Funeral Home and Carter Automotive for sponsoring the show. We get the show started this week with Coach Herkelman and the men's team. We have an exciting thing coming up just around the corner that we're excited to talk more about. But we get it started, Coach, with recapping this week's games. You go to Cloud on Saturday, play a Thunderbirds team that is a suffocating defense on their homecoming weekend, and then you come home and play a Cali team that's also just had a very, very successful season. But I think, as before we kind of dive into what didn't go well, I think against both teams you showed improvement in the how you competed with these two teams the second time around.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing we talked about with the guys today. They're just being able to sustain the effort. We're obviously we do good things in games and put ourselves in position. Up at Cloud, they got off to a really good start at the beginning of the game, and we fight back to get it to be a 3-point game in the second half and got a chance, and then we aren't able to keep it going. And then last night, we're up early in the game. We're doing things that we had worked on, and then we don't have enough discipline to continue to do those things. And when you're playing good people, good teams, you have to be able to do that. As I told the guys, I said we've been on that other side a lot, and the reason teams weren't able to overcome against us is because they weren't able to do those things. They could hang around for a while, but then they would lose their discipline. They wouldn't have enough toughness. They didn't run their offense as clean maybe at times as they did when they were having success. And when we get to that point, then we're going to start enjoying a little more success than what we're enjoying right now.
Absolutely. And, Coach, something that really stood out to me over the course of that Cali game last night was
side of Brian, and also just the way they pick up full court man-to-man, having a couple ball handlers that we could get the ball down the floor. So I liked our plan. I thought we were handling things pretty well, and until probably about midway through the second half, then they started to stretch it out a little bit.
Coach, another thing that you mentioned, of course, Dallas and Nawankwo, the two big pieces for Cali, and something I kind of touched on with Coach Proctor last night is I think for the most part, like you said, that your defense did a good job staying in front for the most part and making contested shots. And I remember early in the game, Dallas hit a fading contested jumper from about the free throw line, and Nawankwo had some tough finishes at the rim with a hand in the face. And when you're going up against players like that, and the defense is there, and it's just kind of a talented offensive player just finishing on a given possession, what's the mindset and the mentality you give to a young team that I'm sure obviously that frustrates them, but also making sure that they stay composed defensively?
Yeah, you just got to move on to the next play. I mean, that's one thing that our guys struggle with at times, that they have done a good job defensively, and then a guy makes a shot. Well, there's good players in this league, and they're going to do that. Nawankwo being one of those, Dallas being one of those. Thomas on the inside has really improved. He's playing really well. But, I mean, when that happens, you just tip your hat, and you got to go play on the other end. And then what you got to do on the other end is just make sure that you're taking a good shot and not coming down the floor and thinking, okay, he just scored on me, and having an attitude of, hey, I'm going to try to go get him back right now. You got to have enough discipline to run offense and do the things that, we need to do to be successful.
And, Coach, final thing I have here as we kind of break down this Cali game before we move on to the matchup with Butler coming up on Saturday is you mentioned, of course, Corey Thomas playing well for Cali, and you went with a smaller starting five where it was really a combination of Chris Carroll and C.J. Smith kind of playing the 4 and 5. And then, of course, you had Alvin Cole and Charles Caporaso off the bench. But really what stood out to me about Chris Carroll since the winter break or so is he's played a lot more forward, which we've talked about. He kind of gives you that option from 2, 3, 4, and he's even played a little bit of 5 for you. But he's been using his size really well down low on the glass. I think he's been such a better rebounder in this last month stretch or so, and he gives obviously your team with looking for depth on the glass. I think he's really emerged as a guy that's really become a quality rebounder for you.
Yeah, he has. He's just changed his mentality towards that. He's been a lot more aggressive, especially on the defensive end. He gets his nose in there and helps us rebound, which we need that, since the loss of Isaac, that a lot of rebounds went out the door when he did. And so Alvin was doing that early, and he's kind of fallen off, and Chris has really picked up the pace with his rebounding, and that's good. And we just got to get some of those other guys back doing it. I thought Charles probably played his most aggressive game that he's played, and I liked his mentality last night. He was aggressive, he was attacking, and if he can do that and go rebound the basketball for us, use his size, which we're going to need Saturday against their big guy, he's going to find more time. So Chris, he's been struggling a little bit from the three-point line, and we're trying to get him in around the basket a little bit more, and hopefully we're able to do that a little more efficiently on Saturday.
We did see Chris get going a little bit on the offensive end in that second half against Cali last night, where I believe he had 7 points early in the half, hit a couple three-point shots. He ended the game with 15. But obviously encouraging to see him start to knock down some of those jump shots, and like you said, a guy that obviously this team really relies on the offensive end to kind of stir the pot in terms of one of your key offensive weapons.
Yeah, I mean, between him and Janai, Brian struggled last night. We're hoping CJ emerges as a fourth scorer, because we're having a hard time getting into 60s, and when you only got three guys that are really scoring the ball for you, that's what happens. And so we got to get CJ going a little bit, Brian a little more consistent. If Javen can get us maybe 6 to 8 points a game, and some of those other guys coming off the bench score a little bit, then then we put ourselves in a better position.
Coach, we move forward to Butler on Saturday, taking on the Grizzlies for the second time this year, and it feels like when you match up with Butler, at least in recent matchups in recent years, the relationship that you have with Coach Fisher and the experience and history you two have with each other's styles and your two's philosophies, I should say, it leads to a lot of physical, close defensive battles between Butler and Coffeyville. And the first matchup between these two was no different, with Butler coming out with a 56-51 victory. So I talked to Coach Proctor about it a little bit last night, but what are some of your team really hung with Butler that entire game. I think the largest deficit was maybe 10 or 11 points, but obviously, the second go-around with a little bit more experience from some of these young guys, those 2, 3, 4 plays down the stretch that gave Butler the edge. What's the key to flipping those to Coffeyville's favor on Saturday?
Well, and hopefully that's the case. Just a little more experience now from the first time that we played them back in November, being able to execute our stuff a little better. But, yeah, when we play those guys, I mean, Fish was with me for 7 years, and, we know each other really well with, our teams. And so he knows what we're going to do. We know what they're going to do, and it's just a grind because both teams will be prepared defensively. And then you got to, just what we've been talking about, being able to execute and get the shots that you want instead of the shots early in a possession maybe that they're wanting you to take. The key is just taking the shots that we want to take. And if we can do that, and they're good. They're one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the conference. They're nationally ranked also, just like Collie was. And we're going to have our hands full going over there. But we'll get ready for it. And if our guys can execute the stuff that we're talking about, we're going to give ourselves a chance.
And Coach, when we talked about Butler the first time, of course, they have 2 talented guards, and A.J. Williams and Deuce Drake, and the player we talked about a lot in the first matchup was the transfer Jamichael Stillwell, who is a forward that can do a lot of things, where he can spread the floor, he can knock down shots, he can finish at the rim. He's a very talented all-around offensive player, but really a player that maybe your team didn't expect to have as much of an impact as he did in round 1 was Christian Richardson off the bench. Their big 7-foot center came off the bench and had a double-double. So obviously your team having Cole and Caparasso that are playing some heavy minutes at the 5. What are some tweaks you're making to try and keep him from having the success he had in game 1? Yeah,
he made some shots I had never seen him make when we played him here. And I think a couple shots were ones where Fish wasn't real happy that he shot it. And but then they went in. So, but yeah, we'll have to have our post double ready for him. He's a big dude, 7 foot, 7'1", nice body. Charles gonna have to be ready to go at him. But yeah, with just our normal post double defense, which does give teams problems. Thomas last night at 6'10". Early on, we caused some problems, caused some turnovers with him by doing that, and. Teams prepare for it, but, when you do it every day like we do, you're able to be successful doing it. And if they're throwing the ball down to him, and we're doing that, but then we got to also jam up the lane well because Stillwell, like you said, he's really a good player. He's one of the best forwards in the conference, and we got to make sure we're doing a good job on him also.
Coach, you mentioned Charles being, of course, a key piece going up against Richardson, and I think in the last couple games, Charles has really started to have some more consistent production offensively off the bench for you. He had a couple mid-range shots, I know, in the last couple games. He's been more aggressive, it feels like, on the offensive side of the ball. Had a really nice putback dunk last night. I still think he used Thomas's arm to dunk that ball, but I think he's obviously progressing on the offensive end. What do you see from him in these last couple weeks? Does he seem to be getting more comfortable in your eyes?
Yeah, he is. He's more aggressive. He's trying to attack a little bit more. He's still got to get better on the defensive end, just his awareness of what's going on around him. But offensively, yeah, he's more aggressive. He's got a couple shots that we've just keyed in on that he's got to look to try to get to, and if he can do those things, then he's been pretty good. I just told him he's just got to keep it in a small little area of scoring, and not try to extend out too much until he gets better. And he is improving but the biggest thing is just what you said, is his aggressiveness, his mentality towards it. He's starting to figure out that you got to play that way if you're going to be successful. Absolutely.
It's our Red Raven Coaches Show here from Gigi's Burger Bar on 9th Street in Coffeyville. Big thanks to Gigi's for having us. Big thanks to Carter Automotive and the David W. Barnes Funeral Home for sponsoring the show. Let's take a quick 2-minute break. When we come back, more with Coach Herkelman here on the Mighty 690 KGGF. We're back in 2. .690 KGGF. I'm Shane Hale. Big thanks to Gigi's for having us. Big thanks to the David W. Barnes Funeral Home. And, of course, Carter Automotive for sponsoring the show as well. Coach, I figured we'd do something a little bit different tonight. And here as we hit, the final month of the season. And that's kind of like a Red Raven check-in, if you will. I know a lot of people listening to the show have been Raven fans for a long time. And there's a lot of good players that have come through this program that are now at 4-year universities continuing their basketball career. And I figured with you being in frequent contact with a lot of these guys, it'd be beneficial for a lot of the listeners to kind of know where they're at, how they're doing, and the most recent stuff with them. So we get it started with two guys that were on the team last year that are still on the same team at NCA&T, Cam Shell and Landon Glasper, and they've both been playing really well, especially as of late.
Yeah, Landon is the leading scorer for North Carolina A&T, and Cam's the second leading scorer So both those guys are doing well. Their team is struggling a little bit, but they're both playing good. They play again tonight.
And, Coach, another pair of guys from last year's team that ended up at the same spot, Jordan Wilde and Nathan Johnson, both at Lindenwood. And I know that school had a little bit of a tie to the Jayhawk Conference. I believe they had 4 or 5 players from the Jayhawk end up there. So what's the latest you've heard from Nate and Jordan?
Well, I watched Nate the other night. Jordan actually tore his ACL in the summer, and so he's redshirting this year. His rehab's going really well. He's already starting to do some basketball activities, so that's good. And then I watched him play the other night, and Nate was in there, did some really good stuff. He's in the lineup. Sometimes he starts, sometimes he doesn't, but he's playing pretty consistent minutes for him. And that's former assistant Kyle Campbell that's over there. And Kyle, he came into the Jayhawk and recruited, the big kid from Butler last year. Isaac is on their team also. So he did a good job getting in the Jayhawk and finding some guys. He knew obviously where they were and did a great job recruiting them.
And Nate was a great developmental player over last year as well, where he went into the season one of your better defenders, great perimeter defender, great leader for that team. But as the year went on, Coach, he just became a better and better scorer. And by the time the postseason rolled around, he was a guy that could put up 15, 18 points a game, and he really developed himself into a great all-around player.
Yeah, he really did. Came into his own big time. I remember the game up at Barton County. He kind of put the team on his back in the second half. He ended up with like 34 points in the game, but really got it going in a tough environment and helped us get the win up there.
Some other guys that are, of course, recent Red Ravens, and one of them, a guy you just saw a couple weeks ago, Boston Holt, down, I believe he was playing down in Tulsa, and
right.
I've heard great things about how he's playing too.
Yeah, Boston, he played at Oral Roberts that night when we watched him play. He plays for the University of South Dakota now. He was at Utah when he left here and got in the transfer portal and wanted to get some more playing time. And he's playing a lot. He's actually starting at the point where here, his freshman year, we played him some at the point. We were trying to figure out where he was going to play. He was playing the 3. And then his sophomore year, as Tyler took over that point guard spot, and Love Bettis came in, and Markeith Browning. Boston moved over to the 4 spot, which was basically like a 4th guard spot for us anyway. He was really a good ball handler, moved well, long, athletic guy, but super young man. He's already got his undergrad degree done. He's going to finish his MBA at the end of this year. And he's doing really well.
And that's something we talked about a couple weeks ago. Is it's a common theme that we've heard with these former Red Ravens that are still obviously Red Ravens, but not only great players on the court, but also just a lot of guys that are captains on their respective teams, or guys that are great advocates for the schools they're at now, guys that are great community members. And we've talked about, obviously, you take pride in their success on the court because that's a reflection of you, but you also take pride in their status off the court because I think that's also a reflection of you.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, when they're here, obviously we're put that emphasis on it, and to hear that they're all doing well. Tyler, he's got his undergrad degree done, and yeah, they're all doing well. They're doing good.
And Coach, you mentioned Tyler Perry, and of course he's a point guard at Kansas State right now with a really talented group. Arthur Kaluma, the Creighton transfer, Cam Carter, another talented player, and some young pieces on that team as well. And K-State obviously playing in what many people believe is the toughest conference in college basketball. And I know you're in frequent conversation with Tyler, and K-State's had a little bit of a rough stretch these last 2 weeks or so, dropping a couple games. But obviously, like we said in the Big 12, dropping a couple games is to number 4 Houston and number 23 Iowa State. So it's not like they've been losing games they shouldn't.
And then the last game to Oklahoma, who's nationally ranked last week, were ranked number 11 in the country, but dropped a little bit. But I talked to Tyler most recently last Friday before they played Houston when they were down at Houston, and Houston's just really good. I mean, gosh dang, they guard you and they move the ball, and just their level of toughness, and they're at the top of the Big 12. And then I had an interest the other night in the OU game, OU and K-State. Obviously, I wanted Tyler to do well, and my oldest daughter, Abby, she's the assistant director of sports nutrition at OU and works with the men's basketball team. So she was at the game, and she went to Kansas State, so she's still got a place in her heart for Kansas State. Still loves the Wildcats, but she's working for OU now, and so she got together with Tyler before the game, and those two sent me a picture, and that's pretty cool that they're both working, or one's working and one is playing for Big 12 schools that are both doing really well.
Absolutely. That's really cool to hear that and see that. And you aren't kidding about Houston. I think Houston's got maybe, in my opinion, the best backcourt in the nation with L.J. Cryer and Jamal Shedd, who were both just outstanding players a year ago, and obviously they came back and improved their game, and that's a team that's going to be a very tough out come March. So.
Yeah, and Kansas goes down there this Saturday, so that's going to be a heck of a ball game for them.
Absolutely it is. Another former player from that team, Coach, that that you hinted at a little bit earlier is Love Bettis, and a guy that came in and really kind of filled that two-guard spot next to Tyler. And what's the latest you've heard from Love Bettis, who's down at Florida A&M?
Right. Yeah, he's playing at Florida A&M. Haven't talked to him. I talked to him before Christmas. Been following him a little bit. Haven't talked to him recently, but he liked moving to Florida A&M because that was going to be closer to home. He's from Pensacola, and I know his family was enjoying that.
And, Coach, final one we have here on this kind of quick recap of some of the former Ravens from the last couple of years. Larry White as well, another one of your former guys that's playing four-year ball right now.
Yeah, Larry is in his last year at Northwest Oklahoma, one of their leading scorers. The fans loved Larry when he was here. Just played with so much energy, and he was an exciting player. He was always trying to go for steals and trying to get dunks, and sometimes it drove me nuts. But, he'd make wow plays, and the fans loved it. And I just loved how hard he played all the time. He was always about the team. And, now in our weight room now, we've got a big collage of our basketball team and the women's team also. And the picture we got of the men's team is obviously the national championship team, but the action shot is Larry going in for the dunk, the final play of the national championship game, and he's in the air getting ready to dunk it. And he thought that was pretty special that we put that up there, and it brought a big smile to his face, that's for sure.
That's super cool.
And one other guy to mention, Blaze Cada.
Yeah.
Blaze is at Nebraska still. He's redshirting this year. He's still trying to get his foot right. He's had a foot injury, and by the time he got it to the point where he could get out and do basketball activities, they pretty much had the rotation in. And I just told him, I said, you just need to use this year as a redshirt year, so you still got 2 years of eligibility, so you can play at full strength. So he and I still communicate, about once every 2 weeks. We talk to each other.
That's great, and it's good to hear how so many former players are still doing well with their basketball career. And you mentioned, of course, with Larry being kind of a human highlight reel, the dunks, the big plays, the energy guy. It feels like that's a theme of your groups from year to year. You got to have that guy that provides the energy, the spark, whether it be a big dunk, whether it be a big steal, whether it be just a guy that fires everybody up. That's an important piece of a winning team.
Yeah, he was that way, and Hayden Brittingham was that way, and those two played together a lot in the second rotation for us when Hayden was a freshman. Those two came in off the bench, and talk about two guys that could cause some havoc out there. And make some exciting plays and drive me nuts at times. But I just love both of them, how they just played so hard, played with energy.
Absolutely, and great stuff here tonight from Coach Jay Herkelman as the Ravens look to get back in the win column against the Butler Grizzlies coming up on Saturday. Coach, always a pleasure, and appreciate it. We'll talk to you coming up on Saturday for Butler.
Okay, thank you.
Let's take a 3-minute break. Coach Tony Turner joins us on the other side. It's our Red Raven Coaches Show presented by the David W. Barnes Funeral Home and Carter Automotive. We'll be free on the Mighty 690 KGGF. Mighty 690. I'm Shay Neal. It's Gigi's Burger Bar where we're at, and appreciate them for having us, and appreciate Carter Automotive and the David W. Barnes Funeral Home for sponsoring the show. Shifting gears, moving to the Lady Raven side of things. And for those that are watching on our stream, you'll see that I'm wearing a Wright State Raiders shirt, and that is a shameless plug to my alma mater. Big game tonight against the Youngstown State Penguins. Winner gets second place in the Horizon League. There's still enough time to go for that regular season crown. So, Raider up, and here's hoping that we can gash the Gwins for the first time in 2 years. But Coach, good to have you. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. Just here ready for this good old talk show.
Absolutely, and your team gets the win over Cali. And Coach, it almost stunned me over how similar it was to the first matchup. I don't know if you kind of realized that after the game and kind of compared them side by side. But first matchup, tied after the first quarter. Your team up 7 at the half. Cali up by 1 at the end of 3. Your team made plays down the stretch and won. Second matchup last night, tied after the first quarter. Your team up 4 at half. Cali up 3 going to the fourth quarter. Your team makes plays down the stretch and wins. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess.
I guess not. I mean, I guess we had had each other's number, at least for 3 quarters anyway.
Absolutely. And it was a game that I think showed your team's discipline defensively, because obviously that first quarter both teams struggled mightily shooting the ball. Each team only had 1 field goal made in that opening 10 minutes, but your team forced turnovers. Your team stayed locked in defensively, which I know is a theme of your program. Don't let offense dictate defense. And I think they did a good job of that. They also, of course, a big development in that game was getting Mbengwe in foul trouble.
Yeah, we did talk about that after the game, and I told them, not every night those shots are going to be going in, but every night our defense shouldn't change, and our motto is don't let our offense dictate our defense, and I thought we did a great job last night of even though our shots wasn't falling early, we just kept grinding on the defensive end and on the rebounding side.
Coach, we talked a little bit before the game about Alexis Parker's game against Cloud. Had a great performance, 19 points and 6 rebounds, and you gave her the start against Cali last night. And your thoughts on how she did in that start, and if that's something we may see moving forward as well.
Oh, no question. Alexis did a great job last night. She's been playing well and, just starting to understand the game, the speed of the game, and just all our crazy sets. And, she's just been pretty solid. I mean, rebounding-wise, she plays within herself. And, if she's open, she's going to make the play. If not, she's just going to go rebound and keep playing.
Well, and, Coach, she seems like the kind of player that, just in what I've seen this year, that just seems to be in the right place at the right time. We've seen missed shots that carry them off the rim and just find their way to Alexis Parker. And I mean, I'm sure, positioning factors into that. But I think at the same time, it's just a player that finds themselves in the right spot. And she ended up the game with 6 rebounds last night, but I think that 4 or 5 of those rebounds probably came in the final 3-4 minutes, because really when it mattered most, and it was a 2-3 possession game late, it felt like when Cali was putting shots up, Alexis Parker was pulling down rebounds.
Oh, no question. I mean, even we were looking at some of the matchups because they went with a smaller lineup, and they're like, nah, Alexis is rebounding. She's blocking people out, and so we'll just keep her in, and she's smart enough to keep people in front of her. And no, she's growing up to be a pretty solid basketball player for us.
Coach, you like you did in the first matchup, you did a great job on containing the Tiger Stars in this one. You, of course, like we talked about, Mbengwe was dealing with foul trouble, only ended up playing in about 21 minutes in that game. Which I think she's their best post player. So that obviously was a huge advantage for your defense. But Jaden Smith, their best 3-point shooter, and Anna Prashishlak, their probably best all-around scorer, they combined to just make 8 shots on 31 attempts. So have to be proud with that effort when you see that in the box score. Obviously, always, like we talk about, containing stars is the key to success in this conference.
Oh, no question. If you can keep the guns down, good things happen for you. But, believe it or not, we didn't have any crazy scheme against them, and I thought we did. We were going to trap down on the post, and I thought we did a good job trapping down on the post. And I thought our team rotated out that post well and was getting their hands up on the shooters. And they stuck to the game plan. Every now and then they got by us going left. A couple of them go left, and we had little breakdowns there. But overall, just the effort of knowing where their better players are and getting a hand in their face, and one and done.
Coach, not necessarily a flashy stat line for Bailey Lehman last night, but I think it's just it's like we talk about a Bailey Lehman stat line. 9 points, hit a couple big threes in that fourth quarter, 1 to tie the game early in the fourth, and 1 to put your team up 3 scores with 2 minutes to go. And she finds it feels like time and time again she finds herself in those clutch moments, those big shots, and more times than not she's drilling them. But not just the 9 points, had 6 rebounds, was getting inside and getting the ball on those kind of 50-50 rebounds, and also had a couple assists. I remember the dime she had to Olivia in that game. It was just it was a beautiful pass on a backdoor cut, and she just she knows her role on this team like we've talked about before, and she just does it at a very high level.
Oh, no question. She works hard all the time, regardless if her shot's going in. I mean, she's going to keep moving. She's going to keep working. She's going to go get rebounds. I mean, she just plays hard on both ends of the court, and we'll definitely miss her. But no, she plays at a high level, and she's a joy to coach because every day she comes in and works hard every day.
And, Coach, another you talked about before the game, obviously in a close game down the stretch like we saw against Cali and like we'll see more as the year goes on with a good team still on the schedule and obviously postseason positioning starting to become more and more of a talking point. You said your sophomores need to make plays late to win games. That's really what wins close games in this conference. Whose sophomores are going to show their experience, whose sophomores are going to make the plays that win games in this league late. And I thought Tatana Woods Blackout showed up in a big way in that fourth quarter. Hit a three to give your team the lead, a lead that you would hold on to for the rest of the game. Had a couple great assists, had a steal late in the game as well that was big, that led to a score that put you up 2 scores. And then also late in the game, she gets fouled. She knocks down 2 of 2 free throws. I think when it mattered the most, Tatana stepped up in a big way.
Oh, yeah, she's a big-time player. I mean, she's a nice point guard. She's a very coachable point guard. In fact, she wants to be a coach one of these days, and she's just learning how to be solid, how to be a solid leader on the court. She plays hard all the time. I mean, she just, if I want to get into her, she takes it. I mean, she's just a good, solid player, a solid point guard to have out there, and she just understands the game.
And, Coach, something else I noticed, your team, we talk about all the drills and all the work you do on rebounding, this group. And Cali's one of the best rebounding teams in the league with Prashishlak and Mbengwe down low. They have just great size, great positioning, and 2 just really good rebounders. And your team, I believe, was out-rebounded by 8 or 9 in the first half, but you only end up getting out-rebounded 40-35. So your team held their own, and like I said, when it mattered most, down the stretch, when Cali was down 4, 5, 6 points, they were only getting 1 shot of possession. So especially in that second half, you have to be proud with your team's rebounding.
Oh, yes, our guards got in there and mixed it up a little bit because we did go to a smaller lineup. And, we always talk about find a body, find somebody, and they did a good job of even getting those long rebounds and tracking down them 50-50 balls, and which helps out a lot when you can give those teams just one and done. And, the teams that usually win the rebounding battle is the team that usually wins. But, I mean, it's just a battle. You know what I mean? Like, you just you got to get in there and rebound.
And I think, obviously, in a conference like this, this point may, end up being moot in a day or two because the turnover in this conference, obviously, games every 3-4 days with more talented opponents coming in, it has to obviously hold true over the course of a full season. But we saw it from your group last year. In the postseason especially, and then we've seen it again at times this year with really a same core of players. But it has to be exciting as a coach because one thing that isn't a guarantee with a group of players, no matter how talented they are, is how they're going to perform in crunch time, how they're going to perform in winning situations. Winning time is, kind of those close games, 6 minutes left, making plays to win games on both sides of the ball, hitting your free throws. And it feels like your team last year and your team this year has those players that really step up when it matters the most and really deliver those big shots, those big steals, those big rebounds. And you being the head coach of a team like that has to be exciting to know that if we're in a close game late, my kids can go out there and win this thing.
Yeah, you hope so. I mean, it's a lot of pressure there, but no, I do have a lot of confidence in them that they'll make the right decision, and sometimes, that right decision don't always come out how you want it. But at the end, you just say they made a great play. They went out there and gave it their all. And that's, when you got some sophomore leadership out there on that court, I mean, that goes a long ways. And, these girls have been to that final game. And, with the experience of the playoffs, I mean, all of it just comes together. And hopefully we can continue finish strong and finish this season where we need to be at.
And I think it's interesting that we're at the point of the year where we talked about a little bit last year where when you're 20, 21 games into the season, there's no such thing as being a freshman anymore in this conference. These players that have been in the rotation, that have been seeing the floor, you got to know the speed of the college game, you got to know opponents, you got to know what it's going to be like on a night-to-night basis. So there's no such thing as a freshman anymore at this stage of the year. But I think at the same time, there is a clear difference with the players that have played 50, 55 games at this point. The players that were a part of a rotation last year, the players that have been a part of a rotation this year, when you go out and you see these second-year, third-year sophomores that have a lot and that have been battle-tested for nearly 2 full seasons at this point, they stand out in times like this at this time of the year.
Well, yes, that's what you want as a coach, like just that game time experience, and as you're getting closer to the end of the season, having it all come together, and I think that's what this team is starting to do, have it all come together as far as our rotations, kind of everybody knows their role. Our sophomore guards are stepping up and being a little more vocal and, just starting to trust each other and plan for each other. And that's something that what a coach enjoys to have as a team. And, our team is starting to buy into that and starting to understand that it's time to get down to business now.
Absolutely. Coach, we look forward to Butler on Saturday in El Dorado, round 2 with the Grizzlies. And, of course, like we've talked about before with Butler, obviously the key being Freddie Wallace, their star forward. But this team really, it was interesting in the first matchup because we talked about it a little bit. Your team and Butler was really neck and neck for 3/4 of that game, and it was just a one little 6-7 minute stretch that the Grizzlies kind of built up a lead that they didn't, and credit to them, a lead that they didn't relinquish. But going into this matchup, obviously, I think the score a little bit misleading because I think something you mentioned after the game was, other than that stretch in the second quarter and the maybe last 3 minutes of the game, you thought your team competed very well.
Oh, yeah, I went back and watched that film today, and it's just some of the plays we were making, the decisions we were making out there. It just wasn't us, and I don't know if it was their pressure that kind of got us rattled down to crunch time. But since then, I think we've improved a lot with handling pressure, making better decisions with the basketball, and it'll be as long as we don't have the mental breakdowns out there, I think it'll be a much different game at their place.
Coach, we've talked about Karis Washington a couple times this year, and I think she's really going to be a key X factor for this team down the stretch, and I'm sure you agree, not just because of her ability to score, but her ability to, I think she's one of the best players on your team at, at the ability to draw charges. We've talked about that with this year. Karis not afraid to get down there and put her body on the line for trying to get an opponent in foul trouble. She's really gotten better and better at getting to the free throw line. She's been one of the best in the conference at that this season. And she's getting better and better as a rebounder as well down low, kind of playing that hybrid 3-4 spot for you. But obviously, being a freshman, which really we just talked about, there's no such thing as a freshman at this point in the year. What do you kind of foresee Karis's role being down the stretch?
Karis is starting to understand the game more, and kind of like Alexis, they're both they're freshmen and learning the speed of the game, just understanding our system. Karis is. I don't even think you've seen the best basketball from her yet, and every day, she's starting to enjoy being around her teammates more, starting, just listening, being more coachable, and as she's doing these things and growing and just getting used to the game, she's getting better and better and better, and and to the point where at some point she'll be one of the better players in this league.
Coach, looking at this Butler team again, you talked about what we saw in this first matchup. Butler has some of the best perimeter defenders in this conference. Randy Harding being all-conference defender. You also have Macy James, who's a very solid defender as well, and a couple others that really help out in that regard. So obviously they're going to be game planning around trying to guard that perimeter, trying to slow down Kylie and Bailey and Tatana as much as they can. So what is the key offensively for getting the ball down low and having other players maybe step up when Kylie and Bailey are being the focus point on the Butler defense?
Well, we're going to spread them out a little bit and get some more backdoor cuts. We've been kind of messing with that package a little bit just to get some backdoor cuts for teams that do put a lot of pressure on us. Setting more of the perimeters off-ball screens so those shooters can come off screens. And so we're going to gimmick it up, not necessarily gimmick it up, just change up a few things just so, we can relieve some of that pressure. So that's kind of going to be the game plan for Saturday is hopefully we can get several backdoor cuts.
Coach, something else I noticed when I was looking at the box score in this one, you got to the free throw line 23 times in that first game with the Grizzlies, and that's obviously been a theme of this team this year is being able to get into the lane, draw contact, and get yourself opportunities at the free throw line. But obviously if things go the way you want, this is going to be a close game down the stretch, and a huge part of this game not only going to be getting to the line but converting on those opportunities. Well,
we shoot 50 free throws a day. They got to make 50 a day and make 100 shots a day on their own time. So hopefully with all that preparation and just practice and just that, getting yourself prepared for these big-time moments, they'll step up there and put them in and just relax and like it's just an everyday thing.
Lady Ravens getting ready for the Butler Grizzlies coming up on Saturday. Let's take our final break of the show. When we come back, More with Coach Turner. We're back in 2 minutes here on the Mighty 690 KGGF here on the Red Raven Coaches Show. On the Mighty 690 KGGF, I'm Shane Neal. So happy you're hanging out with us here on the Mighty 690, and big thanks to Coach Herkelman and Coach Turner for taking time out of their busy schedule to spend an hour with us every week. And like we did with Coach Herkelman, we're doing something a little bit different this week, and I haven't figured out what we're calling this, but just kind of like a Red Raven check-in, if you will, on some, obviously, like we said, a lot of people listening to this show, I'm sure, have been Raven fans for a long time, and I'm sure are curious about where some of your former players are at now and how their basketball careers are going, and myself included. Obviously, I've only been here for a couple years, and I'm curious on expanding on my Raven history here tonight. So we'll get it started, obviously, with maybe a couple members of last year's team that still fresh in the minds of some players. I know Kennedy Roach over at Missouri Southern, and what's the last you've heard from Kennedy?
Kennedy, it started out kind of slow for her, and I sent her a long text saying, hey, hang in there, keep working, keep battling. And she knows my motto, just figure out a way to get on that court. And, since then she's figured out a way to get on the court, and she's been playing much better. I think her team they're winning the MIAA. I think they're like 12 or 13 games in a row and playing well. She's doing a great job.
Coach, another player, I should say a pair of players from your team last year that you were really valuable for your team all season long, not just as players but as leaders as well. Your 4 and 5, Jordan Connor and Cheyenne Banks. What's the latest you've heard from both of them?
Jordan's at Langston University doing well. I think she comes off the bench for them and plays tons of minutes. And, I've watched a couple games online with her, and she's still a rebounding fool, and she's a great defensive player. I mean, she just does all the little things, and I wish I could have her back here. But Cheyenne is at Central Arkansas doing a great job too, and, she starts in several games. We did get to go up and watch her play in Tulsa and against Tulsa, and I was looking at them coaches. We tried to get her to come here, and they kind of shunned her, and she was more than they can handle, but she's doing a great job too.
And Coach, that's something we talked about a little bit earlier, but something that I'm sure you feel the same way. But obviously, a lot of really talented players on this team, and from last year's team, I should say, that are doing great things on the basketball court, but at the same time, good members of the community doing work in the classroom. Some of them already captains of their new programs and big key role players on those teams. And obviously, you take pride in what they do on the court, but I'm sure you take just as much pride in what they do off the court as well.
Oh, no question. And one thing about that crew, they all handle their business in the classroom. They're just great student athletes that represent Coffeyville Community College in the right way. And, when people see where they came from, and they kind of big thumbs up to Coffeyville, and because they're just great kids, man. They just work hard. They're great teammates. I can go on and on about that crew.
Coach, another player that is still continuing her career, and a player that's really, and her name's a very popular sight in Raven history books, Faith Simpson, who is currently third in Raven history in scoring, and just had an unbelievable stretch here at Coffeyville, but she's continuing her career as well. What's the latest you've heard from her?
Faith's at Northwestern Oklahoma State University, her and Paige. Faith is she's been the last 4 weeks Player of the Week, and then she got the National Player of the Week this past week. She's had 1,000 rebounds and 2,000-point career total and more. Keep going. I was watching her online tonight, and she had 16 points by half. I mean, she's just a force to be reckoned with down there in that league. And Paige Scott, she's on that team. She starts for them, and she's just more the role player. Get the ball to Faith, kind of like when she was here. Get the ball to Faith and let Faith go to work. But no, she's doing a great job too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what they say: every Batman needs a Robin.
Yes,
Batman wouldn't be Batman without Robin.
No question about that.
Absolutely. And, a couple other players that you mentioned, I'm still learning my Raven history here as well, but Caitlin Lay, KK Lay, as you referred to her, as well as Nikhil Column and a couple other players of yours that are still continuing at 4 years.
KK was one of my first players that when I got to Coffeyville that we signed. She was a point guard. She had the COVID years while she's still playing. She got injured one year, but she's doing a great job at Cameron University. She starts for them. In fact, her and Nakia played each other the other day and sent me pictures of them playing together against each other. But no, she's a solid point guard, probably one of the better point guards we've had. And I always compare her and Tatiana, who's the better one, but they both have their own little unique ways of their game. But she's doing a great job. And then you have Nakia that's at OCU, Oklahoma Christian University, that's doing a great job too, just battling. I'm not sure how many points they have. They're averaging. I never really pay attention to that. I just see how much they're playing, and she's playing quite a bit, and their team's doing a good job.
Coach, I'm glad you brought that up because that's actually something I'm curious about. When you have former players and you have alumni classes now that like you do, and how often do you use that as kind of a tool for your current team, where you look at a player like a Tatana, you look at a player like a Kylie, and you say, you do a lot of things like this certain player did, but maybe you can tweak something here, or maybe you can, there's a little bit of a difference here. How often do you use that as a resource?
Well, I use it all the time, especially with my post players, because I always tell them I'm used to throwing the ball to our post players. So we had Faith, then we had Cheyenne. Now like those are big shoes. This crew has to follow. But I'm like, come on, we got to step up. We're not used to not having that dominant post player down there. And as far as guards, I talk about just the leadership out there with the guards, how much they communicate and just run the team. And so I do reference point. Or Jordan, I need a Jordan who can go in there and rebound for me. I need a Jordan, But no, I do that a lot.
Absolutely. And, a couple other ones that you let me know of, Coach. Hopefully I don't mess up these names. But Amaya Josie, as well as Martina Ashleman.
Ashleman, yes.
See, I knew I'd get one wrong. It was only a matter of time. But you can only say Prashishlak so many times before you screw one up. But how are both of them? What's the latest with them?
Well, Martina, definitely. She's at Bethany doing well. And she plays with Coach Sarah Bartell, who's the head coach at Bethany, who was one of our former assistants. But no, she's doing a good job. Back to Martina, I always mess up her name too, and I was like, Ashman, but I just say Martina. But no, she's doing good. And Amaya's at Newman University. She starts for them. She's about to graduate this year, and I asked her was she going to use her COVID year, and I think she's just going to be done. And go ahead and try to get her master's or just concentrate on her nursing. But no, she too was also doing a really good job for their program.
And Coach, as we wrap this one up, I'm going to take responsibility for this one because I had a stretch here where I had the chance to try and find where Kanaya is currently at, and I could not do it. But another player from last year's team, Kanaya Starks, also doing great things. She was a key player last year. I know there was a stretch where Tatana got hurt against Hutch and was unavailable for a couple games, and Kanaya started and really filled those shoes nicely, and the team didn't miss a step.
No, Kanaya is doing a great job, and I'm drawing a blank on the school she's at. She's at a school, a 4-year school in Iowa, playing and doing a good job. I believe she starts for them and just running the show. And she's learned from some good point guards. I mean, she worked extremely hard. She's great in the classroom. She's a great teammate, and she's just handling her business at the school she's at.
And Coach, it's cool to see. I've seen at home games this year for your group. We've seen Tori Graham, we've seen Mackenzie Davis stop by just to support the team, just to stop by and kind of soak it in at a Raven game, and that's cool to see. Where not only you'll have their memories on the court, but obviously an impact so good that they want to come back every now and then. That's got to feel pretty cool to you.
Oh yeah, Devin's been back, Kennedy's been back. I mean, they come back and watch. Like, you just guys can't get away from Coffeyville. And
it's like the kid that goes back to high school after you graduate. What are you doing here?
What are you doing here? They still communicate. They still follow the program after games. They talk. Oh, what's Coach? What did he say? What did he say after the game? Like, and that was, he's getting soft on them. Like, but they do follow our program well and wish us well and they tell us about kids in their area that we might need to recruit. But they've been a good avenue for us and a great support crew for our program.
And of course that helps with recruiting as well. When you have players that played well here, go on to 4-year schools, and they're talking about fond memories in Coffeyville, and they're talking about how Coffeyville set them up to be successful at a 4-year school. That's helping you recruit without you having to do anything.
No question. When you can have that kind of, because we can only be certain places, and then we can lean on them and say, hey, call this kid. She went to school here. Talk to her and see what she says. And I always tell them, tell them what you got, tell them what's on your mind, and they do a good job helping us out.
Coach, as we put a bow on this one, your team takes on Butler on Saturday afternoon. Obviously, don't expect you to give me the full rundown here, but here in about 60 seconds, maybe a quick synopsis on what you see from the Grizzlies this time around and what your team needs to do to be successful in El Dorado.
We're going to have to keep them off the boards, and we're going to have to handle their pressure. Of course, make shots, and free throws. We'll get to the foul line, and just defensively, we just got to get out and guard and communicate and know what's going on out there. I'm sure they'll have a counter to what they did to us last time, and we'll just have to make always stay on our board, pay attention to details, be ready to adjust throughout the game, and if we can do those things and just not be intimidated, and that's going to be the key, and not be intimidated by Butler. Butler has a good program; they're still ranked. If we can withstand that and come into this game with some confidence and play with that swag, I like what you'll see.
Ravens head to the power plant on Saturday. Coach Tony Turner good enough to join us here on the Red Raven Coaches Show. Big thanks to Nick Bryan back in the studio for flying the plane. Big thanks to the David W. Barnes Funeral Home and Carter Automotive for sponsoring the show, and a big thanks to Gigi's for having us each and every Thursday. We'll have Ravens and Butler coming up beginning at 1:45 on Saturday over on our sister station, US 98. That does it for us this week on the Red Raven Coaches Show. Back to the programming here on the Mighty 690. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.